Hello and welcome to Press Party, where we turn the tables on the media. Thanks for joining us here at Suffolk University's Studio 73. I'm your host, Katie Eastman. A drone was spotted in Hartford, Connecticut and used by an off-the-clock journalist. Why this is causing controversy. Michael Sam could become the first openly gay NFL player ever. We have the media's reaction to his personal story. And it's a cringeworthy confusion in this week's media fail when one reporter mistakes the man he's interviewing for someone else. That's all coming up, but first let's meet our panel. We have the Chair of Communications of Journalism here at Suffolk University, Dr. Bob Rosenthal, and it happens to be his birthday, so happy birthday, Dr. Bob. And we have multimedia journalist from the Boston Herald, Erica Mora, and Boston City Councilor Tito Jackson. For our first topic, the technology is accessible and very convenient, but journalists aren't legally allowed to use it. We're talking about drones. And as Erica Mora tells us, one that popped up in our neck of the woods is sparking an ethical discussion.
The feds are investigating the possible illegal use of a video camera drone at a fatal car crash.
The person holding the remote was an off-the-clock employee for a Hartford TV station. The drone was his and not WFSB's, although he told police he typically feeds footage back to the station.
Is using one of these unmanned aircrafts legal or is it not? An FAA spokesman says, quote, the FAA currently does not allow commercial operations, including videography, using an unmanned aircraft or drone.
Regulations aside, the use of drones bring an interesting conversation to the table regarding drone journalism.
Police told Fox CT on Thursday drones present concerns involving both officer safety and victims' privacy.
The University of Missouri actually has a journalism class dedicated to drone reporting.
What this does do is provide a different perspective on things from above.
It's a technology gaining quick momentum. So what should the ethical guidelines be for reporters wanting to use it? For Press Party, I'm Erica Mora.
Drone journalism. I would like to take that class. I think that sounds really fascinating.
Yeah, first of all, I love playing with toys, so this seems like the perfect class for me. And second of all, I think it's super interesting because not only does it teach how to use drones appropriately, but it also, if it crashes, they teach you how to fix it. It's a super fascinating class.
Interesting that they're teaching a class that you're not legally allowed to use in the world of journalism, though. Yeah. I don't know if that's appropriate, right? Would you teach this at Suffolk University?
No, although I do know some professors who drone on and on. Sorry about that. Yeah, really, I'll be appearing here all week. But the idea, I'm a little worried about the whole idea of drones with the idea of privacy, et cetera. We were talking beforehand, what does that do to a police scene, for example, you know, where they don't want pictures taken of a dead body, let's say.
Yeah, and I also think the issue of profiling is another component of this. And I also think, you know, when we really think about what's above board, I don't know if I haven't seen a Boston Herald drone around.
We're working on getting one.
Okay, I just want to, you know, but so I think, and the other component we deal with this week after week is actually getting accurate information, right? So the other piece is how are you able to vet what's actually happening on the ground and to figure that out. Week after week, we see people who are putting forth things that end up being false.
But this is just another form of technology. I mean, I'm sure there were these ethical discussions when we first started using cameras in journalism, when we first started using helicopters. Don't we need to move along with the technology?
I think that in this case, I think the technology, I completely agree with you guys that in the case of crime scenes and when there's privacy issues, we absolutely should not use it. But for example, in Missouri, or when we're talking about drought season or something that's going on in the ocean, and there's no technology, there's no helicopter available. The Herald certainly does not have the dollars to spend on a plane. It'd be great to attach a small little camera to a drone, to an aircraft, and just fly it over so that we can give the viewers an accurate representation of what we're talking about.
Well, and in that case, you know, going off the Chatham coast and taking pictures of great white sharks.
You can get gorgeous footage with drone footage,
Oh,
not
exactly.
necessarily
Absolutely.
talking about using it in a breaking news situation.
Exactly.
But what about, because you know it'll happen, what about the first celebrity wedding that gets crashed by a drone where they're trying to be private, right? And the paparazzi decide to do
That's
this.
happened with helicopters, though.
Oh, sure.
So.
But there have to be some level of limits, especially since helicopters are regulated, you know, aircraft.
Right.
And at this point in time, there are no real regulations that are written for drones. The other thing is that you know, drone technology is going to be used in a lot of different areas. Amazon's looking at it, et cetera, to deliver packages. At some point in time, you have to say, okay, can we put a pause on this till we have an understanding of what this does and what the potential pitfalls are?
Tito, what?
And you know, at a time when we're having conversations about NSA and things of that sort, I think the other component of it is how much, how do people feel about them being watched, and you know, not only from the internet and things of that sort, but also, you know, just in the sky. And you know, we had a conversation a little bit earlier. I don't believe that any technology is safe. And it's going to be, you know, secret. To your point, we do have to evolve with the technology, but I think from a regulatory perspective, we have to figure out how that evolution occurs also.
Right. And remember that legally, your property rights extend to the air over the land that you own. So,
Right.
you know.
So that
Absolutely.
right now that makes and that should be a regulation. But I think that they need to make regulations other than just saying no, it's all illegal, because that doesn't make sense either.
Right.
No, don't come into my airspace.
That people are going to start saying that. Yeah.
So I shouldn't be testing my drone
Don't,
around
no,
over
don't,
here.
no.
Are you
Listen,
sure?
I have my flight control that you can't
You'll
do
be
that.
out in the backyard, kind of, you know, sipping a cold one and just chilling some Saturday afternoon, and all of a sudden a Herald drone will be there.
Well, so what's interesting, this whole discussion came from the Hartford off-duty photojournalist who happened to be flying his drone over there. And I have a friend who was working on the ground as a reporter, and she said that her cameras were much closer to the scene of the crime and could see more than the drone could. So it's like, well, they're worried about this, but then they weren't telling the cameras on the ground to turn away from the scene either. So
I also think too that there is sort of a discretion. You know, journalists know, even if we happen to catch on videotape a bloody scene, we might not necessarily
You
show
don't air it, right.
Right. So I think that whenever there's a new technology, there is that fear that that line might be crossed. You know, sort of.
and it will by someone. Of course,
Absolutely.
that's going to happen. But
And we see it all the time with helicopters. I mean, helicopters show gruesome scenes of traffic accidents.
car
Right.
chases, that's a big
Exactly.
thing.
Exactly.
And there are broadcast journalists that in some markets there have actually been cameras that have followed an injured person into the ambulance, you know, right to the door of the ambulance and looking inside. And that's the kind of thing that I think in this market, in the Boston market, wouldn't play well, but it might play well in other markets. And it shouldn't be done. I'm not arguing for it ethically, but so if it plays well there, what you capture with a drone may also play well.
Right, right. I think we'll just have to look into it further and see what regulations they come up with. So thank you guys for weighing in. Thank you for watching. Up next, a college football player makes a very personal announcement on a very public platform. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Press Party. I'm your host, Katie Eastman. Coming out as gay isn't usually news unless you're a football player on track to be drafted in the NFL, a community where no athlete has ever come out.
I'm a football player and I'm gay.
Those two words made headlines all around the world.
There has never been an NFL player who has come out while he was playing, and there have been precious few who've come out after their playing careers as well.
University of Missouri defensive end Michael Sam wanted to tell his story on his own watch. He knew the news would be big.
Is this a huge deal? I understand that it is, but my purpose and focus right now is playing football.
In a controversial reaction article, Sports Illustrated said they interviewed anonymous NFL executives and coaches. They said things like Sam's decision to come out was not a smart move and that it would chemically imbalance a locker room. A Dallas sports anchor had a response to this article. It quickly went viral on Wednesday night.
You beat a woman and drag her down a flight of stairs, pulling her hair out by the roots, you're the fourth guy taken in the NFL draft. You kill people while driving drunk, that guy's welcome. Players caught in hotel rooms with illegal drugs and prostitutes, we know they're welcome. Players accused of rape and pay the woman to go away. You lie to police trying to cover up a murder, we're comfortable with that. You love another man, well now you've gone too far.
For Press Party, I'm Katie Eastman.
So that was a really incredible speech made by this WFAA sports anchor. Not something you usually see coming out of a sports anchor. Usually they're just upbeat talking about what's happening, but it was incredibly emotional, just saying how could Sports Illustrated have quoted these people and given them this credit. Did they do the right thing? Should they have?
Well, first of all, he deserves an Emmy for that speech. Absolutely hit the nail right on the head. And the people who would not put their names to the quote are really, that's to me the lowest of the low, to put something like that out there. If I were a reporter, I don't know if I would have used that quote. On the other hand, if I really want to tell the story that includes that kind of an attitude, because that attitude unfortunately exists in NFL locker rooms that haven't made it to the 21st century yet. Yep. Right, and so if I want that out there to understand what he's going to be facing in some quarters, I need to do that even if it's not attributed to him.
And when you look at, first off, I am happy that this young man came out. I think it's about time that this happened. There's over 1,100 players in the NFL, and he's not the only one who's gay in NFL. And we look at these men as courageous individuals who throw themselves into battle on a regular basis. I think he's one of the most courageous individuals. But I think to Dr. Bob's point, there's still an undercurrent of issues relative to this, I think.
Which is why it's news. This is why we're talking about it. Right. If we wouldn't be talking about it if there wasn't this undercurrent.
Yeah, and so, you know, I think when it really comes down to it, I think you did have to set the context of this. The same thing happened with the bullying case. Right, so there's these things that are happening, and the chemical imbalance comment I think is interesting, because there's a lot of chemical imbalances in many locker rooms. Some of them are synthetic and some of them are organic when it comes down to things. But underlying this, I think the real issue is, I think you did have to set the context for what he is going to go to, and he knows he's going to go through adversity, and I admire him for taking this on.
I also admire him for taking on his own story and for not letting the NFL sort of control that and it leaking through other sources. For him saying, yes, this is my career path. I'm going to say this. This is my story. I'm going to choose how it's going to come out. And talking about context, I mean, he's, you know, Texas native, correct? Texas native. Midwest football, where college football is such an integral part of the culture out there. I mean, even if you don't go to University of Missouri, it's your life. You are a part of it, no matter what. So I commend him.
So even if he doesn't make it into the NFL, it's still a big deal coming out as a college football player.
Well, and he should make it into the NFL. He was the co-defensive player of the year in the Southeastern Conference, which is the biggest. It's the best conference in college football. And so you have to expect, now people have him projected, Mel Kiper, et cetera, third or fourth round. And you would anticipate that it would be right in there, maybe as late as fifth, but no later than that. He's a great defensive end. He's the kind of guy who Bill Belichick would like, because he can play outside. But he can play outside linebacker, because he would be a big outside linebacker. And defensive end position is a position that you can be smaller as a lineman, because it's speed and agility that counts.
But the other component of this is, if I understand all of this correctly, that the NFL is a business, right? And so businesses that are adding on to their viewer base and their marketing base are the ones that are going to continue to grow and be more successful. So the other components of these closed-minded individuals who are, you know, in the front offices of many of these organizations, also they're missing out from that side of things when it comes to the marketability of their teams.
Yeah, they're coaches, and there was an athlete who tweeted out some anti-gay.
Well, actually,
piece,
but there was also an athlete,
but not an NFL player, right?
No, it was not an NFL player, from what I remember.
Jonte Stallworth actually tweeted out some really encouraging things.
Yes.
And he,
so many
and
people.
I gave him props for that, because he checked folks. And in terms of you know, what the locker room mentality was like, what folks are really going to go through while they're there, and so having someone who's an authority to speak on that side, and this is really the advocacy that everyone needs in all of these issues of oppression.
He joined Twitter right after he made this announcement, immediately had thousands of followers, and most of those tweets were just support from athletes, from coaches, from people around the world, and that was really fascinating to see that come out.
And I think most people are going to accept that within the NFL locker room, because he's going to be looked at as long as you can contribute to winning, that's what we're here to do. I think the most important thing about coming out is not the fact that it's going to do something in the locker room. The most important thing about coming out is now the kid who's 15 years old, who was an athlete in high school, who feels all those peer pressures that you can feel in high school and may not feel comfortable coming out, may be willing to admit, not have the psychological issues.
So those will be the stories going forward that we'll be covering and following.
And I also would just say we need cross advocacy. I would like a time where people could embrace him in the same way for him coming out and being gay as also being a black male, because he also has many things. And this week there's a case in Jacksonville, Florida, of a young man who last name's Davis, who was shot and killed. So the other component here is we need advocacy across the board. I'm really proud of what's happening around this case, but we also need to
and you want to see media attention to that.
Well, yeah, media attention about those obstacles also, because again, he has come out, but he also still has to deal with the issues of being an African American male in the United States.
All right, well, thank you guys so much for weighing in. Thanks to you for watching. For our viewers, make sure you tweet out to the show with the hashtag #PressParty. Tell us what you want us to cover. Up next, an embarrassing mistake for a well-known entertainment reporter. Welcome back to Press Party. I'm your host, Katie Eastman. This week's media fail comes from KTLA in California, where entertainment anchor Sam Rubin was interviewing actor Samuel L. Jackson, but he probably wishes he could take one question back. Take a look.
I tell you what, you working for Marvel, the Super Bowl commercial, did you get a lot of reaction to that Super Bowl commercial?
What Super Bowl commercial?
Oh, you know what? I've admit my mistake.
See, you're as crazy as the people on Twitter.
Right.
I'm not Lawrence Fishburne.
That's my fault. I know that. That was my fault. My mistake. You know what?
We don't all look alike.
Flog, you're exactly
we may be
right.
all black and famous.
You
but
are
we all
guilty.
Don't look alike.
I am guilty.
Next question.
I am guilty.
He thought you were Bob Dylan.
Right. That's right.
You're the entertainment reporter.
I know.
You're the entertainment reporter for this station.
Flog.
And you don't know the difference between me and Lawrence Fishburne.
My mistake. My mistake. I apologize. Really, my big mistake.
That is not the end. He goes on, and he does not let this reporter ask him anything else. I mean,
nor should he have.
It makes you cringe though, and I do understand. I mean, I have sympathy for the guy, because maybe we haven't done this on live television, but I'm sure that we have mistaken someone for another person. In this case, it's a little different. What do you think about it?
Well, and I'll put it in the context of in African American culture, there is a common thing that happens where you get mistaken for other black folk. And so I think he has an absolutely right point when it comes to it. It's not just a thing. Mm-hmm. And I actually enjoyed watching Samuel L. Jackson, who I never want to debate in one of those bubbles on Fox or MSNBC.
Oh, it's a losing battle. There is no way.
And he was right to do that.
Right.
And also prepare. Like, there's some things up there that are written. You should know who you're speaking to. Yeah. So I think he was right to be able to be upset.
Yeah, it is absolutely the reporter's fault, and he took ownership of that.
Yes,
he did take ownership of that, and I commend him for that. But going in, I mean, Samuel, he doesn't just show up on the screen. Like, you prepare for that. It's scheduled, you know what's coming up. Even if somehow things got flopped in the scheduling, you're still seeing him. There's still a TV in the studio.
Right. And it sounds like maybe it was an off-the-cuff comment. He was like remembering something that he thought, oh yeah, and I think you have that Super Bowl commercial. Oh, no.
Yeah,
and it was just
and actually afterwards, because I think afterwards he claimed that Samuel L. Jackson had done a voiceover for one of the Super Bowl commercials.
For the
but still, that's not what he was talking about.
There was a preview for a movie that Captain America is he Is he in that?
Yeah.
But it was like, no, you already said sorry. It was clear that you could have explained that there.
It's an honest mistake.
Yeah.
People make mistakes, particularly in live TV. It is, I think, that Samuel L. Jackson handled it brilliantly, because he made his point by being satirical. It was one of the funniest couple of minutes that you could imagine. And he
didn't act like incredibly offended. Like, how could you? He laughed about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And he reduced the host to a pile of goo, and that's, you know, that's fine.
And honestly, it's not like there's that many black leading men that are out there to
Well,
remember,
that's why he was making
right?
that point.
So
like, there's me, there's this guy, there's this guy.
So
okay.
it's not like, okay, I'm sorry you're not Brad Pitt, and there's like a bunch of other guys, right? But when it comes down to it, there's not a whole list that he would have to remember. And on top of it, he's the entertainment reporter.
Right. This is his gig.
Right? It's not like it was a sports guy who was doing the entertainment fill-in.
And you also have to think, if that was Brad Pitt in the interview, he would not have made that mistake. If that was Ryan Gosling, if that he would have been aware that that was not his Super Bowl commercial. I have to think.
I agree. I would agree with that. And again, I do think he was in the situation. Given the situation, I don't know what I would have done if I was that reporter making that mistake. I probably would have cried in the middle of getting verbally.
Would have been so
embarrassing. Dismantled. Yes, that's a great word, you know. So he was a good sport. I do commend him for saying that is totally my fault. Oh my gosh, I am so sorry, and just making a joke about it. But still.
But the other component of this, Samuel L. Jackson is actually pushing a movie, right? So that's why he's doing this. So the other aspect of this is viral. Right? So now Samuel L. Jackson is also out in the news, probably even more than the 20th mundane interview that he was going to do.
Sure, of course.
So it does work from the media.
And he looks good, too. I mean, I've heard him in other interviews. He's a funny guy.
Yeah.
Really is a funny guy. But he was given the opportunity to hype the movie a little bit. You know, tell me about Robo. And he said, no, I'm not going there yet. Right. But the fact that RoboCop got in there is all you need, right?
I didn't even know about that movie. Now I'm like, all right, RoboCop.
And I'll still keep riffing on you.
Yeah.
You know?
And that also makes you want to go see him. So he just was off the cuff.
Oh, absolutely.
I want to go see another Samuel L. Jackson movie.
That's very true. Well, that's all the time we have for Press Party from the Boston Herald here at Suffolk University. We'll see you next week.